yeah, why
Oh,
not?
that's good. That's a good deal. I would go for that.
Yeah. So
Nice.
that's how it is. But most of the time, basically, I'm working for my normal company, Exabeam. I'm working fully remotely, so it doesn't matter whether I'm in Tokyo or somewhere else.
That's true. Yeah. That's nice to hear.
Cool.
No, hi, Matt.
Good to see you. I was like, for a second, I thought I was in the wrong meeting. There were so many people here.
Yeah.
You recognize Joe? No? Joe is easy to recognize from far away.
Well, it was like so many thumbnails. Like I thought maybe I clicked on like a work meeting link or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even like look at the faces. I just saw the thumbnails and I was like, wait a minute, this can't be right.
Well, it's unusual to see Rob. Usually he's audio only because.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
I have some more bandwidth today, so I'm awesome.
Oh, it's early in the month, so your quota reset, right? Great.
Are you interested, or Rob? Are you interested in the Starlink?
Yes, I was subscribed already. Waiting for it to come, but I'm not sure if they will allow me here. But because we are in the valley and we have some clear sky, but not sure if that's good enough for them for beta testing.
Well, with a narrow view of the sky, you'll still get a connection. It might be on and off every 10 minutes or so, or high bandwidth 1 minute and low bandwidth the next. But
no, surely I'm interested in that. I cannot wait, kind of. But let's see.
I'm interested in the antenna.
I could imagine that. You can have a piece here if you get one.
We can improve it probably.
No, it will probably ruin your QR code on your roof now. Or you can place it not on your roof.
No, I have antennas up there already. They're not. They don't block the QR code.
Okay, good.
I don't have any Yagi antennas. Nothing. All of my antennas are flat panels, like that one is. Phased arrays.
Yes, I can imagine you would.
Okay, let's go.
Cool. Let's go. So things we have going on. Emory has been updating Robin's PR around the device story show page. The latest screenshot looks pretty good to me. If you click on this link right here, you should be able to see the build results, and it looks like it's just Rubicop is just flagging some of the indentations. So if you fix that up, we should be good to go as far as merging and pushing that out.
One question on the graph, probably Calvin will also comment on that. That the graphs looks not correct. I mean, it shouldn't.
Yeah, I was reading the discussion about the types of tubes versus CPM and all that in the API channel, and I decided I would wait till the day to try and ask somebody what the heck is going on there. I don't understand the
bumpiness.
I haven't been able to follow the conversation.
Are you asking about this or something else?
I don't know.
Is that about the bumpiness?
Might be a different issue.
Okay. So I think both of these come from, let me just check the dashboard. Yeah, they both come from device details. So if we open up device details, it should be the same. The only thing is I forget what's the time span on this one. It's for the last 90 days. Okay. So we should be able to see the same if we pull up the device dashboard for that device. Device details. Cast device details. Yeah, that's the one. Yep. Okay. And
a lot of confusing labels.
This thing is because like literally we're just embedding that same panel. So and then I just need
it went by kind of fast. It looked like we had like something with air quality, something with something else, and then a SafeCast device. What's a SafeCast device if not all of them?
I don't know what you're talking about when you say a SafeCast device. I mean, obviously,
there was a list that flashed by when you're looking at things, and you could choose different things, and one of them was like air device, temperature device, and SafeCast device. I'm like,
those are probably the dashboard lists. Like when I go in here, I'm searching all dashboards, so it's like literally whatever anyone has made ever. So,
Yeah, that was it. Yep.
yeah, there's like a bunch of random stuff in here. I try to keep all my stuff in like my math folder, but I don't think
Oh,
everyone
that's
does
still
necessarily.
alive.
So, oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if people want to go in and clean up that dashboard list, they can, but like it doesn't, I don't think most people end up like browsing the dashboard list, right? Like they usually come in via API or something.
Yeah.
So that's why that flashed by, and this is, I'm just searching for every dashboard that has the word device in the name, which is a couple of them. Anyway, so device details, which is this one here. And then this would be, if this was all deployed, I could actually just click my way right to that dashboard, but I'm just gonna have to type it in from the screenshot since that's all we have right now. Looks like that one. And it is last 90 days, I think, was it? Double check.
Yes.
Thank you. So many questions flying by. And then we should see pretty much, yep, there's that same graph. So, I mean, it's last 90 days. So it looks like maybe some kind of like an hourly-ish spikiness going on.
That's really weird.
I do not get an update on your screen. I don't know.
That looks like a broken device.
So there we go. But yeah, that's what it's reporting. So, and it's in LA from the looks of things. And this is part of the reason why
that's at Angela's.
Yeah. So I guess we need to talk to Angela about her device here.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is part of the whole reason we're even building these pages, is because like once we have this page, we can do things like associate this device with Angela properly and actually be able to like show her own devices on this page. But right now, I don't think she might not even know that this is the way to see the data that her own device is producing.
Yeah, I don't think so.
She knows, but she's very busy, so she's not checking anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a weird CPM behavior. Yeah. But
it's very weird CPM behavior. And that pattern is really weekly? No, daily, twice daily. Or once daily.
Looks like once daily, and then it drops back down.
A lot of them. It's reading the battery state is affecting the sensors. So maybe the iRover or something. I don't know.
Too low.
It affects the I can't see it affecting communications and having it look like that, but yeah, there's something wrong.
Ray fixed up all the stuff in TT serve, so communication delays shouldn't if there's a delay, the graph will just fill back in.
Between the modules inside the box.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because see there's a processor and things that keeps track of the radiation counts, and then there's the overall processor which manages getting that data and talking to the comms module and uploading whatever, and yeah, there's a lot of internal communication inside the box.
Yep.
That could fail, and because if you send the counts and the counts get missed because they don't get added to the bin because you couldn't contact the radiation sensor inside, then that would look low. It could look low like that.
That looks a lot more like the battery state instead of radiation count.
Yeah.
It looks like he's been charging and then discharging.
Battery voltage.
No, it just pops out if the voltage is not high enough.
No, I'm saying that the radiation graph looks like somebody's like charging the device for.
Oh, it's a solar. It's a solar.
Yeah, so
fine.
Okay, yeah.
It's coming, it's fine, and then it drops out if it's below a certain voltage.
So this is what I'm saying, that this CPM is actually probably somehow the actual, or maybe because it's solar and no, it cannot be. I'm just thinking maybe the sensors are wrong.
The sensor window is damaged and it's seeing sunlight.
Okay, maybe if it's like, in a very strong shade.
There should be two tubes. The two tubes are different. You see?
Yeah.
If one is damaged, it would be one only, but they are.
Well, then it could also be combined with some kind of crosstalk between the two tubes, which we have seen before. If the two bodies of the tubes get connected electrically, there's supposed to be a little insulator ring between them, but otherwise the other iRover starts to see counts from each other.
That's true.
Depending on how much resistance is between them. So if something contaminated that, you could see a certain percentage of counts going on to both tubes. That would be a mechanical problem, but I don't know. Okay, anyway, we should be looking at that's actually diagnosing a device. We need to diagnose the tool first.
So anyway, this is the new screen that Robin started that Emre is going to be bringing home for us, and it should make it simpler for people to pick out these sort of things, especially once we get to the point where we associate, like, these device story records actually go in the database, associating it gives us a row in the database for every device you're in. And then we can associate those with users. So that would be a next step. I think like the next thing we actually have on the list is like commenting support. Let me double check.
So what are all these labels underneath the graph? Is this just all part of the embedded graph, or is it not?
Yeah, it's literally this graph right here, like just getting plugged into the page. So it's all the same labels. You can take a look. They're, they wrap a little bit differently depending on width, but yeah, it's
it doesn't seem like the legend down there doesn't seem anything sensible. I mean, it makes a little bit of sense to me, but I doubt it would to anyone else.
True.
Oh, like the different, the different sensor names. Yeah, and I mean, this is sort of a problem that I would, go ahead, Rob.
I think you should take the average off. That would save a lot of confusion.
Yeah, we could do that.
You can see the kind of tube, and maybe we should make a note there that it's the tube type. Then we can see directly.
Yeah,
and average is probably not correct either.
No, it's not correct. I think so.
Well, it is an average of all the measurements that are coming in. So if we wanted to switch it to max or whatever, we could switch it here. And then you should be able to add field overrides. Yeah. So
I'm okay. I would argue mathematically that it's not an average, but that it's a running smoothing. Whether or not that constitutes averages. Average is a good enough word.
So since we're embedding that, basically means that we don't need to do anything on that code. So just edit the things in Grafana and it will be updated.
Yep.
For everybody. Okay.
The one thing I wanted to mention here, and we've talked about this before, but I would be really interested in if there is like Callan, I remember you did like scripted fields in Grafana, or in Kibana rather. What I think we should do is, instead of doing that, what I would like to do is actually put that calculation into ingest, so that way every time we write a document with a calculated value as well. And so that way, regardless of the graphing tool we use or anything like that, like we always have like a CPM value there that we could use potentially as an easy to show value. Does that make sense?
Okay. Well, yes. So currently, basically the CPM is calculated depending on what sensor it comes. Actually, not the CPM, but microsieverts.
Yep.
So
right. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, that's so it's kind of on the fly logic conversion adjustment, but it's a lookup table basically, so we can find a way to put it somewhere. I'm not sure where is the best place. So it's a pretty static lookup table.
I can send you this. At very least, I would put it here because that'll get it into Elasticsearch. We could also put it into the, like, when ingest receives the data, we could do the calculation there, and that way it would end up in Elasticsearch, Postgres, and anyone who's listening on the SNS channel as well. So I'll send you this link, and then if you want to talk about putting it in there, because that'll be great. Because rather than doing it like view time, if we do it at ingest time, that way we can make sure that like any downstream consumer also is able to see that field regardless of how they're consuming the data.
And you don't want to put it in, you don't want to put it on TT-Surf? No,
we could, that's another possibility. We probably should sync with Ray about that.
I'm not following this actually very well, and I think it's important.
So the idea is So the idea is that basically we still don't have a per tube calibration data. We are losing
conversion factor, not calibration data. Those are
yes, conversion data. So we are looking up basically the tube model. That's why you see all those fields, and there is a static table that's somewhere on the fly that takes the basically the tube model and applies a correction or number calculation and displays the end microsieverts per hour.
Okay, so you are talking about getting
this...
from counts to dose rate, not
Yes.
about modifying the actual CPM, because there has been some issues with modifying CPM to do things like dead time correction and whatnot, and that is Ray and I have both kind of decided that is something we don't want to do.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, let's leave the data that came in. Let's not touch that. I'm talking about like just additional calculated fields, specifically for convenience, right? Because people are going to be interested in the microsieverts as best that we're able to tell them the microsieverts.
Want to show a dose rate, and for the display we have there, the example, because those two tubes are the same geometry, the conversion factor is the same. But on say a SolarCast Nano, you've got a difference in conversion factor of about factor of 3. So the graph is going to be substantially different whether you based on how you display it.
Yeah. So we're going to need some logic here around sensor type and probably even device URN or something along those lines. But the payload here has everything we should need. Yep.
Okay. Ideally, we'd like to have hooks in there where we could apply both a conversion factor and a calibration factor. The conversion factor is based on what we expect the normal sources to be. If it's in Fukushima, then we'd use cesium-137, which is what we basically use globally right now. But ideally, we'd have a characterization where we'd use a different number for, say, something in San Francisco or something in Hong Kong. Yeah. And then you have another factor which has to do with the exact tested sensitivity of that sensor, which is a calibration factor.
Yep.
And we don't do any of that now, but the facilities for doing that, when we have that kind of information, should be available in the API.
Yeah, so we have three levels of correction basically. I mean, tube type, then place, or let's say it's based on what we are expecting to see isotope.
Yeah,
and
region.
Then individual device.
Right.
I mean, so we can try to put up something. I mean, so far we've been discussing that since Fukushima, but we've never had the bandwidth to do it anyway. But we can try to put it, and then we
have the bandwidth to do it now. I just don't want to lock it out in case some really strong reason comes along to do something.
Yeah, if we put such an interface, then we can just put a one-to-one conversion by default, and then we can try to play with the numbers and see if we can find something interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and then once we have a value like that, we can update this graph to use that instead. But for now, the reason these legends look a little zany is because we don't have any conversion like that. So we're literally just reporting exactly what came in to ingest, which is one of these values depending on which sensor it came from.
And that data and those values should always be available. They just shouldn't necessarily be the default depiction on the on the page.
Yeah. They'll definitely be in the docs. I would push back against anything that try to remove it. Yeah. Yep.
Studying sensors, you want to look at the raw data, not the.
Is there any, penalty in terms of? So for the simple case, when we start converting CPM to microsieverts, it's basically multiplying value by constant. So if we start doing the rest of the stuff, of course, that will be an involved calculation and you want to save the results. So do we have any issues with adding additional metrics? I mean, in terms of space and stuff.
Colin?
I don't know where are they going to be saved or not.
Yeah,
we don't need. I don't see we need to save them. We can always just render them at when the page is drawn.
It simplifies things immensely if we can write it into the document, because then we don't have to replicate the calculation logic every place that we decide to render data. So, okay. Sorry, Joe. I would go against you. Yeah, I would say let's save it.
I was asking that question. Is it better? Yeah. Is it which way is better? And I don't have a preference either way. I want to do whichever way is easiest for the technology, for the systems to do. But from a user point of view, we only care what winds up on the screen. It's the same thing as doing dates. You always keep dates in a standard ISO format, and then you apply any time zone or local daylight savings and stuff at page drawing, not, you
Yep.
don't put it in the database.
Yeah, I think the difference here is that we want to make sure that like anyone consuming the data, we have like a number of different ways that you could consume the data. And we want to make sure that that value is there for anyone who is consuming the data. Whereas like if we always say, oh no, we're just going to do it at view time, there are certain tools that people might use to view the data that might not even support that to begin with. So I think it makes things...
It would have to bring along the conversion factor, the calibration factor, the sensor type, all that would have to come along, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think when we think about like data scientists and stuff like that, I think it would make things immensely simpler to just store it and make sure that all the downstream consumers get that same value. So that way, when someone's like poking around like R, for example, like Elena was, I think it was Elena, was doing a year or two ago, like it would drastically simplify things for her because she doesn't have to worry about, learning about all the different conversion factors. She can just use what we put in the doc.
And what about retroactive corrections? When we decide that the calibration factor was wrong or is finally determined to not be 1, does it affect from there going forward, or can it affect all the data going back in the past?
It's easiest to just say it affects from that point forward, but we have the option to go back and update. It's just, it requires some developer time to make that happen. So it'll be a question of like, is it a big enough thing that we really need to go back and correct all the old data? Or do we just say that like, okay, this is just a small tweak, we're not going to worry about
well,
data.
that'll be case by case based on the actual circumstances. And when you send a sensor to a lab and you find out we were off by something, well, then that sensor's historic data also is off. And other times it'll be the sensor was moved and there are new conditions, and the new conditions don't affect the historical data.
So in those cases, we wouldn't want to go back and change the conversion. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So we have to be able to choose that based on the circumstances from a technical, from a science point of view.
Yeah, and there's nothing from a technological perspective that prohibits updates to any of these things. I guess with the possible caveat of like, we do broadcast these, and so if we decide to change an update, people who have already ingested the old value, we wouldn't have control over their database to go back and change the old value.
Right. This is why I would prefer to see everything rendered on screen, as opposed to stored in the database. But it's as long as you put caveats in it that say the CPM value or the raw counts value is the fundamental thing, and everything else is derived from that based on these factors. And if the factors change, that may have to change.
Yeah. And so to that end, I think
50 million records, if you wanted to change everything by from 320 to 322 conversion factor, that's a lot of calculation that would have to propagate.
Yeah, I think it'll be important to prefix these fields somehow, is what that comes down to. Like call them, derived or calculated, or like something that makes it clear that like this is not the data that came off the sensor. This is us, doing convenience computations on what came from the sensor, but still provide the data from the sensor as well.
I very much would like to use the example of a date stamp, where we do everything in UTC, but people want to see, well, was that daytime or nighttime? And so times should ideally be rendered also in local time, so that they can see what time of day it was. And that sensor, like we're looking at it, we're having a hard time figuring out, was this sunlight or not? Because we can't in our head convert to local time. And if it was converted to local time, we'd easily see, oh, well, it's obviously morning there, the sun came up.
Yeah.
So
cool. Yeah, I mean, that'll make sense to me. I think the gotcha is that time zone conversions are well known, whereas CPM to ghost rate conversions are not necessarily well known. So that's why
to me.
That's why I would say I would say let's do both. Basically, is like let's make sure that the raw values are present, and in cases where we can compute a convenience value, let's also compute that in a way that it's clear that this is not raw data but computed data, and that way anyone downstream can leverage that without necessarily being experts on conversion rates.
And what about the how does this affect being able to display in different units? Say somebody wants to see it in the dose rate in microsieverts, or somebody else wants to see it in millirems. It's a different calculation.
We'd probably want to store both values, honestly. Like that's my thought. Like,
well, I mean, the conversion is the same. You go from CPM times 1 factor to get to microsieverts, and you go to a different factor to get to millirems. It's
but maybe
parts of the world like microsieverts, and the US being an important place prefers rems.
But maybe we can make an option, instead of if you click on CPM, you switch to another mode.
I mean, ideally, I'd like to see a selector where the user can say, display this graph in, CPM or microsieverts or REM, and it happens, however that has to happen. But and then it's a sticky preference where the next time they come to that page, either through a cookie or something, it comes up by their preference.
Okay. Is there any non-linear conversion known between microsieverts and millirem that we will be considering?
There is no nonlinear difference between REMs and sieverts, but there is potentially a nonlinear conversion factor for data at altitude.
Okay. Because if we consider those to be exactly linear, so 10 times one or the other, we can probably keep just microsieverts calculated and stored, and then for millirems we can calculate that on the fly on display.
Just by place.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is different from, what we've been talking about, all the three different ways to change from CPM to microsieverts.
Right.
So we can have both.
In the case of REMs and in the case of dose rate between REMs and sieverts, yes, the relationship is just a decimal place shift. But the conversion from CPM to either of those is much more convoluted.
Yes, so I would say let's start with having microsieverts from CPM conversion baked in, store all the end results, store them at how we currently design it, and this will actually allow us with some additional code to go and fix just part of the stream. Let's say we know that this sensor has been for example, in specific place from this date to that date, so we can go and recalculate or recalibrate in a way for this specific time period. And of course, that will invalidate all caching that anybody could have done, but we cannot prevent that.
Right. That's fine.
And for our purposes, it will show correctly. So, in the end of the day, we should be able to see exactly what the end data should have been all the time. And we can have, back on the millirems, we can have additional option to say, show me the values of this sensor, show me the raw values always, show me the compensated values that are known to the database, and show me the raw values converted on the fly at the current calibration data, which can be two different things, if you understand what
based
I mean.
on I agree with that. We probably should come up with labels and things that are for those, and we can do that at a different time, because there are words that have become common in radial protection circles, so compensation and conversion and calibration, all those have taken on kind of particular meanings, which are not necessarily obvious to somebody who's not experienced in that exact field.
Yeah, we can write a text page and have it somewhere with the definitions, how we use it.
Yeah, most people just want to be able to see dose rate, and for the solar casts where the conversion factor is the same for the two sensors, like on that graph, it's easy because it doesn't really matter what the units are, they still scale together. But on a SolarCast Nano, where the gamma only tube has a sensitivity 1/3 of the pancake tube, then the two graphs, when they're superimposed with actual CPM values, have a factor of 3 difference on the graph. And obviously, if we were to convert to dose rate, then they should line up, because suddenly that factor of 3 is included.
Yep. Okay. All right. So Matt, if you can just send a pointer link to that, so I don't have to dig around the code. I'll try to come up with something initially, and then we can work on it.
I have to excuse myself for a minute.
Yep, I do too. Oh yeah. It's already top of the hour. I gotta go. This is good. I sent you some links in the channel, Callum.
Okay.
By the way, hello. We haven't met yet.
We can do introductions another time. Go to your
Yeah.
nowhere meeting, Emery. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. See y'all.
Okay.